A lion does not lose sleep over the opinion of sheep, but your enemies. Oh, they haven't slept since you left them behind. They tossed stones, hoping to shatter you, but instead they only built the throne you now sit upon. They spread their venom, whispering in the shadows, convincing themselves that their gossip could wound you. But here you are, standing taller, walking stronger, and leaving them choking on the dust of your success. They are watching, bitter and broken, haunted by the reality they never saw coming. You handled it like a pro. They tried to make you the villain in their story, but in the end, you became the author of your own destiny. And now, they are nothing more than footnotes in a book they'll never finish. Chosen ones, welcome back to your sanctuary, the place where truth is spoken, illusions are shattered, and power is reclaimed. If this message resonates with you, smash that like button, hit subscribe, and drop 77 in the comments. When you engage, you tell YouTube this message needs to reach more chosen ones, because this truth is bigger than just us. They don't want this message to spread, but we are unstoppable, and when we rise together, their lies crumble even faster. So take a second, support this movement, and let's dive into what they don't want you to know. You weren't just chosen, you were born to disrupt. Your mere existence sends shockwaves through the weak-hearted, exposing everything they wish they could hide. That's why they can't stop talking. That's why their whispers never fade. They wanted you to fall in line, to shrink, to beg for their approval. But you did the one thing they never saw coming. You walked away without a single glance back. And now they're drowning in their own irrelevance, scrambling to stay in a story where they were never the main character. They thought their words had weight, but your silence crushed them. They thought their lies could define you, but your truth shattered every illusion they built. See, the power of a chosen one isn't just in their strength. It's in their ability to expose weakness without even trying. You didn't need revenge. You didn't need to fight them. You simply rose, and that was enough to dismantle them from the inside out. Because here's the truth they can't admit. They never had power over you. They were parasites, feeding off your light, mistaking your kindness for fragility. But when you cut them off, they withered into nothing. They stare at you now, watching, hating, obsessing, because your glow has become their reckoning. Every time you win, they lose. Every step forward you take is another reminder that they are stuck. They envy you because your fire is real, while theirs was always borrowed. They called you arrogant, but what they really meant was they can't handle the confidence they never had. They called you difficult, but what they meant was you refused to be controlled. They called you selfish, but what they meant was you stopped sacrificing yourself for people who wouldn't even clap when you succeed. And now, they are forced to sit in their own shadows, confronted with the fact that they never had the power they thought they did. The power of being chosen isn't just about surviving. It's about becoming the storm that washes away the weak, the fire that burns through every falsehood, the force that cannot be ignored. You don't beg for a seat at the table, you build your own empire. You don't fight battles beneath you, you let your presence do the talking. And while they waste their breath trying to discredit you, your silence is the loudest victory of all. They're haunted by your existence because it forces them to face their own insignificance. And now, the only sound left is their own desperate whispers, whispers that no longer have the power to reach you. And thank you, yes, you, the chosen one. Whether this is your first time here, or you've been standing strong with us from the beginning, your presence and super gifts are the fuel that keeps this movement alive. The weak ones watch in silence, but the strong ones rise together. If you're ready to own your power, rise above their desperate noise, and walk in your destiny unapologetically, then do what they fear most. Smash that like button, hit subscribe, and drop the number 77 in the comments. Let them see that no matter how much they whisper, the chosen ones only get louder. This is your moment. Let's get into it. Number 1. Silence is louder than screams. They expected a fight. You gave them nothing. The loudest scream comes from a mouth forced shut by reality. And right now, your enemies are choking on the silence you left them in. They wanted a war. They wanted you to lash out, to throw words like daggers, to claw and fight for your name. But you didn't give them what they craved. Instead, you did something far more powerful. You walked away, unshaken, undefeated, untouched. And now, they are the ones screaming into the void, desperate for a response that will never come. You see, weak people live off reaction. They feed on drama because it makes them feel relevant. Their words, their gossip, their petty schemes, they were never about you. They were about them, about their fragile egos, their desperate need to feel important, their fear of being forgotten. And when you refused to react, when you didn't even look in their direction, you forced them to sit in the one thing they fear most, their own insignificance. This is the truth they can't handle. Your silence was never weakness. It was a weapon, a sword so sharp it cut them deeper than any insult ever could. They expected a fight, but instead, you gave them nothing. And now, they are left with no choice but to fight themselves. They have no enemy to face, no battle to twist in their favor, no distraction from their own emptiness. And that is what's eating them alive. Think about some of the greatest figures in history. Martin Luther King Jr. faced hatred so vile it should have broken him. But instead of stooping to the level of his oppressors, he held his ground in unshakable dignity, and that silence became louder than their threats. Look at Jesus, betrayed, mocked, and sentenced by those who feared his truth. Did he fight? No. His silence in the face of their cruelty became the echo of his divinity. Even today, the most powerful people in the world know the truth. Power is not in arguing with fools. It's in proving them wrong through action. So why do they hate your silence so much? Why does it haunt them? Because without your reaction, their attacks have no weight. They scream into the wind, but the wind does not answer back. Their gossip, their insults, their manipulations, they were all designed to pull you into their level, to make you crawl into the mud with them. But instead of wrestling pigs, you soared above them, untouched by the filth they wanted you to sink in. And now they're suffocating in the silence that exposes their weakness. Without your engagement, they have no fuel. Without your anger, they have no control. And without your energy, they have no purpose. You stole their power simply by choosing not to acknowledge them. Now, some of you might be thinking, but defend myself? Don't I need to set the record straight? No, you don't, because the truth always stands tall while lies crumble under their own weight. Look at celebrities, public figures, and leaders who have been slandered, ridiculed, and lied about. The ones who kept moving forward, who let their actions speak louder than the accusations, are the ones who won in the end. Meanwhile, their enemies became nothing more than bitter echoes in history. Your silence isn't just a refusal to engage, it's a statement that says, I do not entertain the irrelevant. I do not validate the desperate. I do not waste my breath on the defeated. And that silence, that's what's driving them mad. They thought they could control the narrative, They thought their words could shape your reality, but your refusal to acknowledge them has rewritten the entire story. They expected a war, and instead you left them talking to themselves. Now they whisper among themselves, trying to convince each other that they still matter, but deep down they know the truth. You have already moved on, and they are still standing in the same place, fighting a battle that no longer exists. And that is the loudest silence of all. Number 2. The boomerang effect. Every lie they threw came right back. A lie is like a boomerang. Throw it with all your might and watch it return to shatter everything you built. They thought they were clever, whispering in the shadows, spinning stories, twisting truths, convinced that their words would tarnish you. They sat in their little circles, laughing, feeling powerful, certain that their lies would spread like wildfire and reduce you to ashes. But what happened? The fire never touched you. Instead, it turned back and burned everything they had. This is what they never understood. Energy doesn't disappear. It returns. Every false rumor, every word soaked in jealousy, every dagger they threw with poison-tipped tongues, it all came right back. And now, they're the ones suffering. They're the ones whose reputations are crumbling. They're the ones whose names are being dragged through the very mud they tried to bury you in. Because the universe doesn't let deceit go unanswered. Truth moves like a tide, slow at first, but unstoppable once it rises. They thought they could twist reality to fit their own insecurities. They thought they could convince the world that you were the problem. But the problem was never you. It was their obsession with tearing you down. And now that obsession has become their downfall. Look around. How many people have tried to destroy someone only to end up destroyed themselves? History is full of them. Judas betrayed Jesus for a handful of silver, thinking he'd win. But his own guilt became unbearable, and he sealed his own fate. People plotted against Martin Luther King Jr., thinking they could silence him, but his words outlived them all. Even in modern times, how many celebrities, leaders, and public figures have had lies thrown at them, only for the truth to eventually come out and expose the ones who spread the falsehoods? Because here's what weak-minded people never realize. Lies are unstable. They require constant maintenance. The moment you start lying, you have to keep lying to cover up the last one. It's exhausting. It's never-ending. And sooner or later, one crack forms, and the entire web collapses. Meanwhile, the truth? It stands on its own, unshaken, needing no defense. That's why they're scrambling now. Why they're suddenly backtracking, pretending they never said what they said. Because the very people they tried to convince, they're starting to see through the act. They're starting to ask questions. Wait, if what they said about you was true, why are you still thriving? Why are you still rising while they're falling apart? And that's the thing. Lies have an expiration date. Truth does not. They expected their words to break you, but instead, they boomeranged back and shattered their own illusions. They spent so much time trying to destroy your image that they never stopped to think, what happens if people realize the real problem isn't you, but them? And now, it's happening. The ones who once entertained their gossip are turning away, losing trust, distancing themselves, because nobody respects a snake once it's been exposed. The backstabbers are now looking over their own shoulders, wondering who will betray them next. The slanderers are watching their own words come back to haunt them. Now, some of you might be wondering, should I say something? Should I clear my name? No, you don't need to. You never needed to. Truth doesn't need defense. Your silence, your success, your very existence is proof enough. Let them drown in the lies they created. Let them scramble to patch the holes in the ship they set on fire themselves. You are already miles ahead. This is the boomerang effect. What they threw at you didn't land. It circled back with twice the force. The weight of their own deceit is now crushing them, and the best part, you never had to lift a finger. Watch them now. Watch as they struggle to clean up the mess they made. Watch as the same people they once convinced turn away in disappointment. Watch as the lies collapse under their own weight, because no structure built on deceit can stand forever. And you, keep moving forward, chosen one, because while they're stuck in the ruins of their own destruction, you are walking straight into greatness. Number 3, they wanted you to crumble, but you built an empire instead. They thought they were burying you, but they didn't realize you were a seed. And now, you've grown into something so powerful, they can't even stand in your shadow. They wanted to see you broken. They whispered behind closed doors, spreading their envy-laced lies, convinced that if they threw enough dirt, they could bury you beneath the weight of their hate. They thought their words had power. They thought they could shake you, break you, make you doubt yourself. But while they were plotting, while they were hoping for your downfall, you were doing something far more dangerous. You were building. See, weak people always focus on destruction. It's all they know. They don't create. They don't innovate. They don't elevate. Their minds are too small for greatness, too fragile for resilience, too desperate for shortcuts. They don't understand what it means to build something from the ground up, to rise from nothing, to take every stone thrown at you and turn it into a foundation. But you understood. You took their insults and turned them into fuel. You took their gossip and let it sharpen your focus. You took their hate and used it as bricks to build your empire. That's why they're miserable now. That's why they're choking on their own resentment. Because everything they hoped would destroy you only made you stronger. Every lie they told became another reason for you to push harder. Every obstacle they put in your way became another step toward your success. And now they don't know what to do, because instead of seeing you fall, they're watching you rise higher than they ever imagined. Look at the greats. Oprah Winfrey was told she wasn't fit for television. They wanted her to shrink, to give up. But she didn't crumble. She built a legacy. Michael Jordan was cut from his high school basketball team. They expected him to quit. Instead, he became one of the greatest athletes of all time. Steve Jobs was fired from his own company. They thought that was the end of him. Instead, he came back and built an empire that changed the world. This is what your enemies never understood. True power doesn't come from avoiding struggle. It comes from using it. They thought they were writing your ending, but they were just adding another chapter to your success story. Every attempt to break you became another reason to grow. And now they're stuck, watching, wishing, seething, because they can't take back what they did. They can't undo the fact that while they wasted their time trying to tear you down, you were rising. They can't erase the fact that you proved them wrong without even trying. And nothing burns them more than seeing you win when they swore you wouldn't. You might be wondering, why were they so obsessed with my failure? Because they needed it to justify their own. They needed you to fall so they wouldn't have to face the truth about themselves. Your success is a mirror, reflecting everything they could have been, but never had the discipline to become. They thought tearing you down would make them feel bigger, but now they realize it only exposed how small they truly are. So let them sit in their misery. Let them watch from the sidelines as you thrive in a game they were never even qualified to play. You don't owe them an explanation. You don't owe them forgiveness. You owe them nothing but the view of you standing tall, unshaken, unstoppable. Because the truth is, you were never just surviving, you were always building. And while they were running in circles, hoping to see you fall, you were creating something they could never touch. This is the difference between you and them. They bet everything on your failure, but you built an empire on their doubt. And now, they have nothing, and you have everything. Number 4, they're haunted by your glow. Your light exposed their shadows. The brightest light doesn't just shine, it exposes everything hiding in the dark. And right now, your enemies are scrambling for cover. They never hated you for what you did. They never hated you for your words, your actions, or even your success. No, their hate was always about something deeper. Your existence forced them to see themselves, and they couldn't handle the reflection. Weak people thrive in darkness. They survive by blending in, by pretending, by keeping their insecurities hidden under layers of ego and deception. Then you showed up, bold, bright, unapologetic, and suddenly every falsehood they built crumbled in an instant, because your light did what light always does. It exposed everything. They thought they were strong until they stood next to you. They thought they were wise until your clarity made their confusion obvious. They thought they were powerful until your presence alone revealed how small they really were. That's why they tried to dim you. That's why they whispered, why they slandered, why they threw shade. Because standing next to you made them realize just how little they had. But here's the thing about real light. It doesn't ask for permission to shine. It doesn't beg for approval, and it doesn't shrink for anyone's comfort. That's why they hated you. That's why they still talk about you, even when you've moved on. Because your glow didn't just expose their shadows, it cast them in a darkness they can't escape. Think about it. How many times have you seen people attack someone not because that person did something wrong, but because they were everything others secretly wished they could be? Look at Michael Jordan. They mocked his intensity, but they envied his greatness. Look at Oprah. They laughed at her beginnings, but they couldn't deny her power. Look at Jesus. They feared his truth because it shattered their control. Greatness has always been attacked, not because it harms people, but because it forces people to look at themselves and ask, why am I not doing more? And that's exactly what happened with you. You didn't even have to say a word. Your glow alone was enough. They saw your growth, and it exposed their stagnation. They saw your peace, and it magnified their internal chaos. They saw your strength, and it reminded them of their own weakness. And instead of rising with you, they chose the easier path. They tried to pull you back into the shadows with them. But it didn't work. It never could. Because chosen ones don't shrink. They rise. Now they're haunted. They wake up thinking about you, replaying their failures, drowning in the reality they tried to deny. They thought ignoring you would make them feel better, but it only made them more obsessed. They thought slandering you would make them feel powerful, but it only exposed their insecurity. And now they can't look away. Some of you might be wondering, why do they still care? Why can't they just move on? Because you were never the problem. They were. They're not mad at you. They're mad at themselves for never having the courage to be what you are. You broke the cycle. You refused to settle. You became something more. And that reminder, it keeps them up at night. You see, a chosen one doesn't just shine for themselves. They shine because they are a symbol of what's possible, a symbol of resilience, a symbol of what happens when you refuse to stay small. And people who are afraid of growth, people who have built their entire identity on mediocrity, cannot handle the sight of someone who refuses to be average. That's why they're haunted, not by your words, not by your actions, but by the reality that you exist, by the fact that you refuse to dim yourself to make them comfortable, by the fact that you are still standing, still rising, still untouchable. And the best part, they can't stop watching. They'll act like they don't care, like they don't see you, like you don't matter. But the truth, their silence is just as loud as their words, because deep down they know the truth. You are everything they fear, and no matter how hard they try, no matter how much they whisper, they will never be able to escape the light you shine. Number 5. The battlefield was theirs, but you controlled the war. A fool sharpens his sword for a battle he has already lost. And your enemies? They didn't even realize the war was over before it began. They thought they had you cornered. They whispered in the dark, building their little armies of gossip and deceit, sharpening their tongues like blades, convinced that when the moment came, they would strike and leave you broken. But what happened? The battlefield they built became their own graveyard. Every trap they set, they fell into. Every scheme they crafted collapsed in their own hands. Because while they were busy plotting, you were playing a completely different game, one they never even understood. See, they thought this was about petty battles, about slander, rumors, manipulation, cheap weapons used by weak minds. They expected you to show up swinging, to meet them in the mud, to waste your energy proving yourself to people who were never worth the effort. But you didn't. You saw the battlefield for what it was, small, insignificant, beneath you. So instead of fighting, you did something much more powerful. You left. And that was the move they never anticipated. You didn't play their game. You ended it before it even started. You refused to fight battles that held no value, and in doing so, you forced them to face their own irrelevance. Now, they're standing in an empty war zone, weapons in hand, swinging at shadows, realizing too late that the only ones left to fight are themselves. History has always favored those who understand true strategy. Look at Sun Tzu, the greatest war strategist of all time. He said, "The greatest victory is that which requires no battle." He understood that power is not about fighting every enemy. It's about choosing the fights that matter. It's about controlling the battlefield, controlling the energy, and ultimately controlling the outcome. And that's exactly what you did. You never fought for their approval. You never defended yourself against their lies. You never gave them the war they so desperately wanted. And now they're standing there, frustrated, angry, looking around for a fight that no longer exists. They underestimated you because they assumed you thought like them. They assumed you would be just as small, just as reactive, just as desperate for control. But what they failed to realize is that true power does not chase validation. It does not entertain distractions. It does not waste time on meaningless wars. While they were sharpening their swords, you were sharpening your vision. While they were gathering their troops, you were building your empire. While they were throwing stones, you were stacking bricks. They prepared for war, but you prepared for success. And now, the difference is undeniable. Look at them now, scattered, confused, unable to understand how they lost a fight. They were so sure they had won. They thought controlling the battlefield meant controlling you. But you controlled the war by refusing to engage on their level, and that's what destroyed them. Some of you might be wondering, but if I don't defend myself, won't they think they've won? Let them think whatever they want. Their opinions do not shape reality. Your results do. You don't need to fight when the evidence speaks for itself. You don't need to explain yourself to people who are committed to misunderstanding you. The only thing that matters is that while they were obsessed with dragging you into their battles, you were busy winning a war they didn't even know existed. That's the difference between you and them. They are fighters. You are a conqueror. Fighters argue. Conquerors build. Fighters throw punches. Conquerors throw foundations. Fighters seek revenge. Conquerors seek elevation. And now, you're untouchable. They wasted their energy trying to pull you into their games, but you saw through every trick, every manipulation, every desperate attempt to keep you tangled in their chaos. And instead of playing along, you chose something greater. You chose to win on your terms. So let them stand in their war-torn battlefield, clutching their broken weapons, wondering why their attacks never reached you. Let them argue with ghosts, scream into the void, and fight battles that no longer exist. Because you're not there anymore. You've already moved on. You've already won, and they'll spend the rest of their lives trying to figure out how. Number 6. They can't outrun karma. What they wished for you became their fate. The holes they dug for you have become their graves, and now they scream for mercy in a storm they created. They watched you with envy, their hearts poisoned by resentment, their tongues dripping with curses disguised as concern. They wanted to see you stumble, to watch you crawl, to hear the sound of your destruction echo through the walls of their own insecurities. They whispered behind your back, plotted in the shadows, and sent out silent prayers for your failure. But the thing about praying for someone's downfall is that the universe is always listening. And karma doesn't take sides. It only delivers what is earned. And now, everything they wished for you has come knocking at their own door. The very misery they hoped would consume you has become their daily reality. The storm they tried to summon over your life has ripped through their own foundations, leaving them exposed, weak, and drowning in the consequences of their own actions. They thought they were powerful, that their manipulations would go unnoticed, that they could play with fire and never get burned. But karma doesn't forget, and karma never loses an address. They spent their time scheming, convinced that their pettiness would break you. But what they didn't realize is that when you send out negative energy, it returns, and it never returns empty-handed. Every insult, every smear campaign, every lie, it all carried weight. And since you refused to pick it up, the weight has fallen right back onto them. Look at them now, scrambling, watching their own lives unravel piece by piece, wondering why everything they touch turns to dust. But they already know why. They know deep down that this isn't bad luck. It's karmic justice in motion. They wasted so much energy hating you, trying to dim your light, trying to control a destiny that was never theirs to control. And in the process, they ignored their own growth. While they were watching your every move, they stopped moving forward themselves. While they were busy trying to make sure you lost, they never realized they were the ones falling behind. It's always the same story. People who live with bitterness, who operate in jealousy, who thrive on destruction, they always think they're untouchable, that the rules of the universe don't apply to them. They think that just because their attacks aren't met with immediate retaliation, they've escaped judgment. But karma doesn't work on their timeline. It waits, it builds, it collects every debt. And when it finally arrives, it doesn't knock. It breaks down the door. Think of history's greatest backstabbers. Judas betrayed Jesus, and the weight of his own actions destroyed him. Dictators, traitors, liars, all of them thought they could outrun the consequences of their deceit. But the universe never lets corruption go unchecked. It might take time, but time never forgets. And now, the same rule is applying to those who tried to break you. They see you winning, they see you thriving, and it infuriates them, because after all they did, after all their effort, you never fell. You never crumbled under their weight. You never gave them the satisfaction of watching you lose. Instead, you rose higher. Instead of fighting back, you let the universe fight for you. Instead of getting revenge, you got results. And that was the worst punishment you could have ever given them. Some of you might wonder, should I feel bad for them? Should I forgive them? That's up to you. But understand this, you didn't do this to them. They did this to themselves. You didn't curse them. You didn't wish harm upon them. You didn't spend your days obsessing over their downfall. You simply let karma do what it always does, balance the scales. And now, as they sit in the wreckage of their own making, don't be surprised if they try to reach out, if they suddenly start acting kind, if they suddenly claim they've changed, if they suddenly want to make things right. But remember, people don't regret their actions, they regret the consequences. They're not sorry for what they did. They're sorry they got caught in the trap they set for you. Let them deal with their fate. Let them learn from the pain they tried to send your way. You owe them nothing. Keep moving forward, keep thriving, and let them watch as karma teaches them the lessons you never had to. Because the most powerful thing you ever did, you didn't have to lift a single finger. You stayed silent, you stayed strong, and the universe handled the rest. Number 7. Gossip is the sound of the weak. Their words hold no weight. A dog barks at the moon every night, but the moon never barks back. And yet, the dog still exhausts itself trying. That's your enemies, yapping, whispering, running in circles, convinced that their gossip could shake you. They thought they were writing your downfall with their words, but all they did was carve their own names into the wall of irrelevance. Because here's the truth they refuse to face. Gossip is a confession. Every time they spoke about you, they exposed themselves. They never hated you because you did something wrong. They hated you because you existed outside of their control. You walked in truth while they built their entire identity on deception. And what do liars fear most? Someone who doesn't need to lie to stand tall. So they did what weak people always do. They tried to turn the world against you with whispers in the dark. But here's the part that haunts them now. Nobody takes them seriously anymore. At first, people listened. They leaned in, entertained the rumors, fed into the spectacle. But gossip, no matter how loud, has an expiration date. And the more they talked, the more obvious it became that this wasn't about you. It was about them. Their words weren't revealing anything about you. They were screaming out their own insecurities, their own failures, their own irrelevance. Look at history. The greatest figures, the ones who reshaped the world, all faced slander, rumors, and attacks from those who couldn't match their power. Martin Luther King Jr. was called a troublemaker. Nelson Mandela was labeled a terrorist. Jesus was accused of blasphemy. And yet, here we are, remembering their names, while their enemies have been buried in the dust of time. Why? Because gossip is weak. It is the last resort of the powerless, the weapon of those too small to fight with anything real. They gossiped about you because they feared what would happen if people saw the truth. They needed to poison the well before anyone could drink from it. But what they didn't understand was that truth is water. It finds a way to flow, no matter what stands in its path. And now, that truth has revealed them for what they really are. Frauds, jealous, insecure, and scrambling for relevance in a world that is already forgetting them. And you never needed to defend yourself, because while they wasted breath on rumors, you were out here living proof of everything they denied. Your actions drowned out their words. Your success silenced their accusations, and every move you made forward left them more and more irrelevant in your rear view. Now they're desperate. Their words don't land the way they used to. People are starting to see the pattern, the way they target anyone who rises above them, the way their stories change depending on the audience, the way their bitterness drips from every word they say. And nothing exposes a liar faster than time. Some of you might be wondering, but what if people believed them? What if my name was dragged through the mud? It doesn't matter. Mud washes off. The only ones who stay dirty are the ones who threw it. And trust me, they are drowning in it now. They built their reputation on tearing others down. But the thing about gossip, it's a hungry beast. And when it runs out of new victims, it turns on the very people who fed it. Watch, soon enough, they'll start attacking each other, cannibalizing their own circle, because people who thrive on negativity always end up self-destructing. So let them talk. Let them scramble for attention. Let them repeat the same tired stories to an audience that is shrinking by the day. You have already won. And they have become exactly what they feared: irrelevant. Number 8. They're chasing shadows while you're chasing destiny. A fool runs in circles thinking he's moving forward, but a chosen one walks in purpose, leaving the lost to chase their own shadows. They're still there, stuck, spinning the same old stories, recycling the same tired lies, playing the same pathetic games. They thought they had you locked in their little maze, running with them in endless circles, trapped in the cycle of their gossip and jealousy. But what happened? You walked away. You stopped playing. You saw their illusion for what it was, an empty loop leading nowhere. And now, while they're chasing ghosts of a battle they already lost, you are chasing destiny. That's what separates the weak from the strong. They hold on to the past while you build the future. They replay old grudges in their minds like a song stuck on repeat, while you compose an entirely new symphony of success. They sit in their little groups, dissecting your every move, trying to convince themselves that you're still within reach. But deep down, they know the truth. You've outgrown them, and they can't stand it. It's almost funny, isn't it? They spent so much energy trying to stop you, and now they spend even more energy trying to keep up with you. But they can't. They're too distracted by their own bitterness, too consumed by their own envy, too weighed down by the burdens they refuse to let go of. You, on the other hand, you are weightless, unstoppable, untouchable. Look at history. How many greats were mocked, hated, and doubted, only for their critics to be forgotten while their names lived on. Michael Jordan was cut from his high school basketball team, but did he sit around proving his doubters wrong with words? No. He became so legendary that no one even remembers the people who once doubted him. Beyoncé was dismissed as just another girl group singer, but instead of arguing with critics, she worked in silence and became untouchable. The greatest don't argue with fools, they leave them behind. That's what you've done. You stopped looking back. You stopped explaining yourself. You stopped trying to prove anything to people who were never going to understand you anyway. And in doing so, you left them in a dust storm of their own confusion. Now they scramble, trying to find new ways to pull you back, to make themselves feel relevant in a story that no longer includes them. But it's too late. You are miles ahead, and their voices don't carry that far. You might wonder, why do they keep coming back? Why won't they just move on? Because they don't have a path of their own. They've never built anything for themselves, so all they know how to do is chase what someone else has. And since they couldn't stop your rise, the only thing left for them to do is try to drag you back down. But let's make something clear. You can't dim your light just to make them comfortable. You can't slow down just so they can catch up. You were never meant to stay in the same place as them. Your destiny demands movement. They call it hate, but the truth, it's obsession. If they didn't care, they wouldn't still be watching. If they had moved on, they wouldn't still be whispering. If they had their own purpose, they wouldn't be so fixated on yours. But they have nothing, so they cling to the last thing that gave them meaning, you. And that is why they are forever stuck. Because while they chase the memory of the battle, you are chasing the future of your victory. While they are trapped in the shadows of their own failures, you are stepping into the light of your success. While they waste time trying to figure out how to bring you back, you are already gone, soaring into a destiny they will never touch. So let them chase their ghosts. Let them waste their breath. Let them run in circles while you keep moving forward. Because at the end of it all, they will still be talking about you, and you will still not care. Number 9. You starved their ego, and now they're desperate. A parasite without a host starves, a fire without fuel dies, and a hater without your attention, they collapse into nothingness. They thought they had power over you, thought they could control the narrative, pull you into their games, and drain you of your energy. They mistook your kindness for weakness, assuming you would always be there, engaging, explaining, defending yourself. But then you did the one thing they never saw coming. You cut them off, you shut the door, you walked away, and just like that, their lifeline was gone. Because that's what these people thrive on: attention, validation, the thrill of knowing they can get a reaction out of you. Haters don't hate because they truly dislike you. No, they hate because they need you. They need someone to project their failures onto. They need a distraction from the emptiness in their own lives. They need a punching bag for their insecurities. And when you refuse to play that role, it destroyed them. Think about it. What happens when a narcissist loses their supply? They spiral, they lash out, they scramble to get back what they lost. That's exactly what's happening now. Look at them, desperate, gasping for the power you stripped away. The moment you stopped reacting, the moment you stopped caring, the moment you stopped even acknowledging their existence, they lost control. And now they're suffocating in the silence. They're throwing jabs at shadows, hoping you'll bite. They're exaggerating their lies, making their stories wilder, more dramatic, just to see if they can pull you back in. They're stirring up drama with whoever will listen because they need someone to feed their starving ego. But the only thing growing in their world is their desperation. This isn't just random behavior, it's a cycle as old as time. Look at history. Look at great leaders, successful people, visionaries who broke away from the opinions of the weak-minded. Every single one of them had leeches trying to pull them back down. And every single time, those leeches did the same thing, screamed louder when they realized they were being ignored. Jesus had people slandering him, twisting his words, calling him everything under the sun. Did he chase after them, begging them to see the truth? No. He let them talk. He kept moving forward, and his name still echoes through history while his enemies faded into nothing. Elon Musk, whether you love him or hate him, has people tearing him apart online every single day. Do you think he sits there arguing with every hater? No. He keeps building, keeps innovating, keeps succeeding. And his enemies? They just look smaller by comparison. This is what happens when you starve negativity. It weakens, it withers, it becomes powerless. That's why they're desperate now. They're looking for another way to get under your skin, to regain the influence they lost. But it's too late. You already took their power and turned it into your fuel. They no longer exist in your reality, and that is killing them more than any clapback ever could. But some of you might be wondering, what if they keep talking? What if they don't stop? Let them talk to the wind. Let them rant into the void, throwing their tantrums like bitter children who lost their favorite toy. The truth is, they're not just desperate for your attention anymore. They're desperate for any attention. And that's the part that really stings them, because they've started to realize you weren't just their target. You were their last source of relevance. Now, they have nothing, no control, no power, no grip over your mind. And you're thriving, unbothered, untouchable. While they chase ghosts, you're chasing destiny. While they waste their time on meaningless drama, you're building a life they will never understand. This is what it means to be chosen. This is what it means to rise above. And this is what it means to watch your enemies destroy themselves, not because you fought back, but because you let them drown in the silence they never prepared for. Keep moving forward, chosen one. Their desperation is just proof of your power. Number 10. Your existence is their reckoning. The mere fact that you exist, thriving, unbothered and unstoppable, is the loudest warning bell your enemies will ever hear. They wanted you gone, but instead you became their greatest nightmare. You never needed to lift a finger. You never needed to fight them, defend yourself, or even acknowledge their whispers. Because your existence alone, your very presence, is the thing that haunts them. Every step you take forward is a slap in the face to their doubts. Every success you achieve is a funeral for the lies they told. You don't have to prove anything, because your life is already the proof. They told themselves you wouldn't make it. They whispered behind closed doors, convincing themselves that you were just a phase, a mistake, a temporary rise. They placed bets on your downfall. But now, every milestone you hit, every new level you unlock, every victory you claim, it forces them to confront the ugly truth they've been running from. And that truth? You were never the problem. They were. You see, your enemies aren't just jealous of what you have. They are terrified of what you represent. You are the walking, breathing evidence that they could have done more. You are the living reminder that they settled for mediocrity while you chose greatness. And that eats them alive. Look at history. Look at how many greats were ridiculed, attacked, and doubted. Not because they did anything wrong, but because their mere existence shattered the illusions of others. Muhammad Ali didn't just win fights. He forced an entire world to confront a confidence they weren't ready for. Nikola Tesla wasn't hated for failing. He was hated because his genius revealed how small others' minds were in comparison. And Michael Jordan? His success wasn't just about basketball. It was about proving that discipline, obsession and raw talent will always outshine lazy entitlement. That's you. You don't need to expose their weaknesses. They do it themselves every time they speak your name. They can't stop watching you. They can't stop thinking about you, because no matter how much they try to convince themselves that you're not a threat, your success proves them wrong every single time. Have you ever noticed how much energy they put into disliking you? How much time they spend talking about you, watching you, analyzing your every move? Think about it. Why would someone focus so much on a person they claim to hate? Because deep down it's not hate, it's obsession. They need to see what you're doing, because every achievement you unlock is a reminder of how much they've fallen behind. And now they are stuck replaying the past while you build your future, stuck whispering while you're out there making power moves, stuck wondering why you refuse to acknowledge their existence while they can't seem to escape yours. That's what happens when you rise above the noise. They lose their power, their words, their gossip, their petty games. They all lose meaning the moment you stop playing along. And that's why they're furious. That's why they can't rest. Because your wins aren't just victories, they're wake-up calls. And trust me, they're wide awake now. They are watching you live the life they told themselves wasn't possible. And now they have two choices: face their own shortcomings or keep pretending they don't see you. And you already know which one they'll choose. They will keep talking. They will keep trying. But it won't matter, because the gap between you and them is only getting wider, and their voices are getting smaller. Your existence is their reckoning, because it forces them to see what they could have been if they had just done the work, instead of wasting their time plotting against you. But now, it's too late for them. You've already won, and that chosen one is why they will never stop watching, never stop talking, never stop obsessing, because your life, your success, your sheer presence is the very thing they will never be able to escape. Let them choke on the reality that you are everything they feared you would become. Keep moving forward, keep thriving, and let your existence continue to be the reckoning they never saw coming. Number 11. The last chapter. You closed the book, and they're stuck rewriting the past. They thought they were throwing dirt on your grave, but all they did was plant a seed, and now you've grown into something they can't control. They tried to silence you, to bury your name under gossip, to drown your voice with lies, to make you disappear like you never existed. They convinced themselves that if they piled enough hatred on top of you, you'd break under the weight. But they forgot one thing. You weren't a body to be buried. You were a force waiting to rise. And rise you did. Louder, bigger, more powerful than they ever imagined. Every stone they threw became the foundation beneath your feet. Every betrayal only hardened your spirit. Every attempt to erase you only made you more unforgettable. And now, you're the storm they never prepared for. They wanted you to fade away, but instead, your presence looms over them like thunder in the distance. They hear your success like a drumbeat in the air, feel your energy like the wind before a hurricane. They know they can't outrun what's coming, because what's coming is you. So let them brace themselves. Let them realize too late that the storm they tried to destroy has only just begun.